What's wrong with all the white women? I mean the liberal arts ones. Where have all the beautiful women gone? All the lovely ones, the elegant ones. Where are the Joanna Lumleys and Audrey Hepburns and Raquel Welch's? Where's all the elegance? Where's the charm? Where's the beauty gone? If you put Pan's People or Legs & Co into a search engine, those are dance groups from the 70s and 80s, watch those videos and you tell me they aren't infinitely more attractive than the ladies we have today. Where's all the femininity gone? Why all the spitefulness and unpleasantness? Why all this pretending or behaving like men, trying to be laddish? What's with all those ugly gurning expressions, pulling faces, all those public tantrums, you see those videos of women screaming, in cars and things, and general vulgarity. What has happened to the European women? Why are they like they are? Why are so many woke? Why have so many nasty Karens come out of the woodwork? Why all the treacherous, blue-haired, face-stapled, tattooed, plain types supporting our enemies? Why are they so nasty, spiteful and hateful to their own race? Why the disloyalty to their menfolk? Why do they support and protect Pakistanis that have en masse raped and abused thousands of their little daughters? What on earth are they actually learning of any constructive or positive use studying these liberal arts degrees? It's not cold fusion. It's not harnessing clean energy or reducing poverty and starvation, is it? Illogically nowadays, there is a body of people who can't, or I should say won't, define what a woman even is. These people with no hold on reality get tied and twisted up by an illogical and unscientific struggle between biology and what is obviously a mental illness. Even some women don't know what they are, or indeed where they've come from. Of course, the smart women know what a real woman is. J.K. Rowling recently said it's easy. Do a DNA test on their sperm. As a normie, normalish man of a heterosexual persuasion that has been lucky to go to nearly every country on the planet and been, I should say, intimate with a good deal of their women over those years, I have a fairly good grasp on what a woman is. And after some drunken shenanigans in Soy Cowboy in Bangkok, I have a very good idea what one isn't. I could say glibly that women, wherever they come from, are pretty much the same. They all crave attention and they like having kids, or at least they used to. In fact, having and raising children is their biological reason to be, even if they don't like to admit this. Women are genetically different to men. Their body structure and strength is weaker. They're not going to like me saying this, but it's proven they have smaller brains. They have higher rates of things like depression, anxiety, eating disorders, and general neurosis. If I do take a more gentlemanly stance, I'm inclined towards the scientific explanations that articulate the difference between men and females. For instance, the social scientist Jordan Peterson posited that women, when compared to men, have proven traits that are different, like higher degrees of agreeableness, in the sense of being more polite, cooperative, compassionate, and all that kind of thing. He said women have higher degrees in neuroticism, meaning things like anxiety, emotional pain, volatility, sensitivity to threats, and, at least they used to, sensitivity to infant distress. Peterson further noted that women are more interested in people and social relationships than men. Hence, I suppose, gossiping about other women is infinitely more important and more interesting to them than getting more performance from your motorcycle by changing the air filter and remapping the ECU. The truth is, men and women are different, and each have their strengths and weaknesses. So you may ask, why is it white women and not women from East Asia exhibiting all these unattractive traits and annoying wokery? Well, I suppose it's about environment, culture, upbringing, and education, or lack of it. If you look at the mayor of Toronto, Olivia Chow, she's originally from Hong Kong and she's extremely woke. And what about the word woke anyway? Well, I'm not really sure of the origins of the word. Never heard it before until the last decade or so. But I think it entered the vernacular as being something to do with being alert to racial prejudice and discrimination, and evolved to describe people with progressive and left-leaning views on social justice, identity politics, gender equality, environmental issues, and systemic inequality. Now, you may opine that I am anathema to those values, but I'm not. I am a vehement proponent of fairness, justice, and equality. And you may think I'm a racist. Well, I'm not. The woman I love and have shared my life with for the last 2 decades isn't even the same race as me, and neither are my kids. I would say, if I'm forced to pigeonhole, that I'm a libertarian. So long, I suppose, of course, that all the other libertarians around me are smart and kind, can drive well, don't wish to steal all my stuff, and behave properly. I suppose that's the dilemma, isn't it? Freedom versus accountability, benign dictatorships versus democracy, and all that. What really grinds my teeth is the hypocrisy of it all. I think about those typical Democratic Party supporting woke Yanks you see on the TV that want to allow immigrants from the third world into America, and indeed they're the same types who want to do the same in Europe. I guess the reasons is so that they can have some more cheap slaves that can mow their lawn, clean their swimming pools, and clean out their lavatories. But they don't want them to live in their own neighborhood, do they? Or heaven forbid, rent one of the room out to them in their huge mansions. They're the same liberal elites who sing, jump, dance, and pretend to be other people for our amusement and entertainment in films and theatre. You know, the De Niro's, Coogans, and all those types. They're social elite hypocrites, divorced from reality by electric fences around their mansions, and I suggest the absence of books. Anyway, I don't think being woke is about race and equality. I don't even think it's about anti-establishment rebellion. I don't even think it's another word for the hijacked word liberal. I think it's self-loathing. I think it's empathetic suicide. I think it's narcissism. I think it's attention seeking. I think it's ignorance. I think it's never been told no when they were kids. I think it's plain and simple hate, especially towards men. I think among liberal white women that there is a special hatred for working class white men, and it manifests itself or presents itself in violence, tantrums, embracing ugliness, attacking conservatism, supporting foreign regimes, and embracing societal collapse. I think it's a viral mental illness that is spread, among other means, by the ability to reach other people through the social media, people who would ordinarily ignore them. They're frustrated people, and they're conflicted, and so they act up, just like toddlers. Essentially, they're unhappy people that no longer enjoy Tupperware parties or traditional female roles. But they're not going to muddy their hands by digging up coal 2 miles beneath the ground, or help build anything useful by hauling up bricks in a hod carrier in the freezing rain, are they? These women, they hate Englishmen like me, especially those they can't control anymore and who have long since abandoned their nonsense. I suppose at the core of it, I am proud to be an English gentleman. Proud of the accomplishments of my country, proud of my forefathers that built and fought for Britain, proud of our shared values, history and culture. And I would like England to stay English. It's what we are. We earned it, we own it, and we must protect it. So let's look at some of the issues the liberal women bang on about all the time. The environment and climate change, for instance. I agree, the climate is changing, but it's been doing so for 5 billion years. I agree we should stop polluting the air and our water, but don't bankrupt us all, destroy our enjoyment of life, and freeze us to death trying to do so. Having lived on this planet for a good 6 decades, been to nearly every single country on the planet, own a beach house here that hasn't plunged into the sea. In fact, the sea level outside this house, evidenced by the tidal marks and the rocks and dunes, has been exactly the same for centuries. I can see it with my own eyes. I also live in Hong Kong, where the air and water quality is actually better than when I first went there 40 years ago. On balance, I'm not worried. And I think the Greta iceberg climate change hysteria is over-exaggerated and just an excuse to attack our way of life. Plants, which we eat, and our meat eats, and which create oxygen that I quite like breathing, love CO2. Along with water and photosynthesis from the sun, they are nourished and give off pure oxygen as a byproduct. They love CO2. So save the planet, save the rainforest is what I say. One day, we humans will master cold fusion energy and will produce hydrogen generated cheaply from the electrolysis of water. This clean element that powers our own sun will power internal combustion engines with nothing more coming out of the exhaust than pure water. Until then, get rid of the fucking windmills. They're hideous monstrosities and they're killing our birds. And get rid of the electric cars. They silently creep up on you. They fry your prostate and they encourage bad driving because they are basically huge attention distracting smartphones on wheels. And a message to Elon Musk. Stop fucking around with rockets. No one wants to go to Mars. Planet Earth is special. It's beautiful. It's God-given. Start focusing your attention on clean energy and maybe AI sex robots that can change wheels, pour pints and replace, well, you know. So what else do the Karens, the white liberal women, bang on about all the time? Oh yes, Ukraine, a former Soviet Union country that I've been to and worked in. And I will tell you, it has the most corrupt government and the most ruthless mafia you can imagine. It's actually where Russians came from, hence the word Rus. Of course, the Karens have never been there. You know, all they're good for is smashing up art galleries, blocking roads and screaming in their cars onto Instagram and TikTok. Few have ever read up on Ukraine and Russia's history, and I venture most couldn't point to Kiev on a map. In reality, I don't really care about Russia and Ukraine, other than think it's a terrible and unnecessary slaughter of millions of young men from both sides. And I think we should be fair. America stipulated that Russia can't station missiles on its border, and NATO should do the same, should abide by the same rules with Russia. What I say is stop funding this war and stop the killing. That's my message. But, you know, the lefties, they love war, don't they? They love killing. They've been, all of them, from Mao, Pol Pot, Stalin, they just love killing. And what's the other thing the lefties, lefty women go on about all the time? Oh yes, fucking Gaza. They love that one. I don't have a dog in the race with Israel and Palestine, except for the fact that I have read a lot of history books about the Levant and the Holy Land. And also, my personal view is I think Islam is an Arabic medieval death cult. And I think microwaving live babies, slaughtering families in their homes, raping young girls and corpses, and mutilation of Jews or otherwise isn't very nice. Also, I have been to Jerusalem. It's a fascinating place. Lots of history, but it is populated by some of the nastiest, most argumentative and aggressive people I've ever encountered anywhere on this planet, across the racial and religious spectrum. Headbanging, wailing, wearing strange clothes, eat this, don't eat that, do this, don't do that. Kill anyone that isn't in your own nutcase cult. It's a melting pot of conflict and hate. God doesn't need to be told it's great 5 times a day or even on Sunday. It already knows it's great. There is, in fact, more God in the wings of a butterfly than in the Wailing Wall, Mecca, Rome, any big cubes in Saudi Arabia, or any building with an altar. And what's the other thing that the lefty liberal women always, white women always go on about? Oh yes, they hate the Donald. Personally, I don't think much of Trump, but then I don't think much of Biden or Harris, Obama, nor any of the others. I think in the #1 economy and most developed country on the planet, with a population of 400 million people, that there should be far better qualified and smarter candidates to choose from than the current morons who are elevated into positions of political power. And of course, so they can insider trade, amass enormous wealth, and hang about with pedos and perverts like Epstein. Have you noticed how depraved and perverted all the people in power are? Not a day goes by without a revelation about those in power abusing children or covering it up. They're all nonsense. And on the subject of America, specifically Minnesota, I've also been to Somalia, and I'll tell you what I think about Somalia. It's a shithole. Just a tip, if I may. I suspect importing Somalians into America, or indeed Europe, isn't going to improve the quality of life for those already there. They are a bit lazy, they're very corrupt, and they're prone to violence. It's a nation of thieving pirates, either stealing your shit from container ships off the Horn of Africa, or stealing your tax by scamming you with things like fake kindergartens and stuff like that. And what's the other thing? They're a bit dim. An average IQ of 68, which is thicker than a congealed bowl of bananas and rice, isn't it? And my own country, England, governed by morons from both sides of the political spectrum. Only megalomaniacs, narcissists, and psychopaths become politicians, and they're all strangers to the truth. But if I have to pick one, and indeed I have, and I'm signed up, member, I'm with the other Rupert. What I don't understand is why white women always side with the wrong uns, why they are disloyal to their own kind. Why do they try so hard to behave like men when they don't like men? Why have they stopped being feminine? And why have they started ruining everything? I personally don't agree with Islam. It's my opinion. I'm entitled to have one, as I think it is, based on my research and my experiences, a medieval superstition. And my relationship with God, and yours, I should say, should be private and personal. And let's be honest, the Muslims don't put up with any shit from their women. Barefoot and pregnant is their motto. Which begs the obvious question, why do liberal white women support such a woman-hating cult? It's pure Charles Manson stuff, isn't it? Turkeys for Christmas. Let's look at that recent election in, what's it called? The Lancashire borough of Sodom and Gomorrah. Here, the Islamists employed taqiyya, which is an accepted deceptive tactic where they're allowed to lie, and it's been condoned in their medieval death cult instruction manual, which of course was written by paedophiles from the Dark Ages, as a means to subjugate and conquer. They're allowed to lie if it achieves their jihadi objectives. And in this Lancashire borough, they played a sectarian blinder. They pretended to be environmentalists and in love with the mad hippies, with the sole intention of getting one of their useful idiots into Parliament. You know, you've seen the one, Hanachba, dancing around like a deranged toddler that's eaten too many blue Smarties. And thus another winning move on the European Islamic Caliphate chessboard. Of course, a game of chess, someone eventually loses. And the way it's going, the way things are going at the moment, that looks like it's going to be England, Harry and St. George. And what's with all this replacing white men with blacks, not just in the workforce, in academia and entertainment, but in history? It ain't working with me, because as soon as I see a black Bond, Doctor Who, Anne Boleyn, Isaac Newton, any 17th century English aristocrat, a Norman soldier, a Viking, a shoehorned extra on a London tube train in the Blitz of 1940, or even one filling up a washing machine with washing powder in a TV advert, I know, and I'm sure many other people out there know, it's complete bollocks. It's dishonest, it's theft, it's disrespectful, it's a lie. It's cultural appropriation, or should I say cultural misappropriation. It's book burning revisionism. I'm not fooled, but I have a solution. I have a remote control over there. Click. And I make a mental note to boycott, to unsubscribe, to ignore all DEI casting TV and films. Unless, of course, it's Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman, or Lawrence Fishburne, because I quite like them. They're good actors who made it on merit. The rest, I am black fatigued. I had enough. And I'm going to finish this narrative with my favorite, men in dresses. Now, I used to think that characters like Mrs. Doubtfire, Lily Savage, Dame Edna Everage, they were hilarious. They were very, very funny. On the few occasions I was lucky to go as a kid, I loved going to the pantomime and the bizarre fantasy of all their cross-dressing. And in fact, I know a guy in Bexhill in Sussex in South England, a great big hulk of a bloke, who likes dressing up as a woman, but only at the weekends to go out on the lash, apparently. I once asked him why he does it, and he replied, I like to. So you can't argue with that. And I don't. I don't understand, but then I don't understand why people like potholing, rock climbing, drinking Chardonnay wine, or playing golf. But each to their own. If some beefy dude walks into the public bog and lifts up his pinafore dress to pee in the urinal next to me, I'd probably say nothing. And seeing his willy among the frills, it would be pointless asking for his pronouns, wouldn't it? But I would try and stifle a giggle. If he does the same in a woman's bog or changing room, it only affects women. And aren't they the ones that love all this stuff anyway? So we're all good, aren't we? Well, except we're not, because despite all I have said, and I'll admit it's a no-holds-barred narrative, there remain somewhere out there English, American, Australian, German, Italian ladies just getting on with it. Working hard, raising families and running households. Even running households and holding down a job. Putting up with the shit we men inflict on them. And at the same time remaining elegant and dignified. Being beautiful, inside and out. The long and short of it all is I have long since given up anything to do with white women. Liberal ones, I mean. Being in Asia most of the time, I'm far removed from all their nonsense. I mean, I do occasionally see an angry white woman scowling around the village I live in, rural Hong Kong, and for the large part, I avoid their scowls and gurning faces. I occasionally overhear them in pubs and restaurants. They're usually whining about how bad China is, and yet there they are, in China. And of course, their number one complaint is whining and complaining about the standard of cleaning by their Filipino slaves. But for the large part, I am immune to them. So as I've said in other videos, many have been shadow banned or cancelled. And as I said, I'm still going to keep talking. I'm still going to keep writing SOS in the sand, despite 2 tides a day, washing it all away. I will finish, like I do in my forensic investigation reports, with a list of recommendations and suggestions. So, you know, for the white men out there who have had enough. And here it is. Thailand. Tot ziens.